Morning, everyone. We will call this meeting of the Rules Committee to order for Wednesday, April 3rd, and I'll note for the record that we do have a quorum present. First order of business is approval of the minutes from Tuesday, March 26th. Vice Chair Hollins, would you care to move the minutes?
Chair Long, I have reviewed the minutes because I got here so early, and I move their approval.
Vice Chair Hollins finds the minutes impeccable. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next order of business is deadline waivers. We have 6 that we are taking up today, and I'll remind the committee that our job here is only to waive the deadlines for further action and to recommend a re-referral for a substantive hearing, so we won't be accepting amendments or public testimony. Pursuant to Joint Rule 2.03, there are 6 bills now in the possession of the committee after missing the deadline, and we will go through each of the 6. The first is House File 3947, which is Representative Nelson's labor policy bill. And the reason for the waiver is that we can blame the Senate. There was a change of mind in the Senate about doing a labor policy bill, and so that meant that it required some belated assembly. I will move that the deadline be waived for further action on House File 3947, and that 3947 be placed on the general register. Discussion to the motion. Representative Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mine isn't really a discussion to the motion, but more a comment on the practice of not having authors at these hearings. I think we've discussed this last year. I'm bringing it up again because I think it's an important precedent that you are denying. In my recollection, rules always brought the authors in to explain themselves why their bills were being delayed, and so that we, as members of this committee, could ask those authors questions and get the details and understand really what's going on, instead of just a rubber stamp process where we just say, okay, they're here, we'll just stamp them out, away they go. This is important to the way this body works, and important as to how the House of Representatives functions in a way that is transparent, not only to our members, but to the public. I'm alarmed that we're not bringing these authors in. I think it's setting a very poor precedent, and I want to put that on the record, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Torkelson. We did have this conversation last year. In the time that I've been on the Rules Committee, this has been the practice. I know there may have been previous practices before the last session, but this has been the practice in recent time. And I'm doing our due diligence to make sure we are getting on the record the reasons for the request, and happy to have any discussion that we need on those rationales for the bill waivers. I agree that it is not to be taken lightly to waive a deadline, and the bills that we have before us, I think, all have good reasons to be waived. Leader Damon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the question from Representative Torkelson. The answer that was provided, I do find it interesting that when talking about the state office building expansion and build, we refer back to the fact that it was already heard, and that was last year. It was before this legislature for last year and this year, and I think that's interesting that we have to refer back to how something was done as an adequate answer on the state office building, but yet when we are talking about having bill authors here for the waiver of a deadline, we just refer back to the fact that this is how we did it last year. It doesn't matter how it was done years previous. I just find that inconsistency quite interesting. To the bill, the question, what other committee stops does this bill have, and how many will that be?
It will not have additional committee stops. It will be placed on the general register.
Okay, and follow-up? You had, thank you. You had mentioned that it was due to the Senate that we are missing this deadline. Can you expound on that a little bit? I know we operate as separate bodies.
Well, we do operate as separate bodies, but we have to pass bills jointly. And this bill, the labor chairs agreed late to do a labor policy bill after the Senate changed their minds about whether they wanted to or not. So that was why we had to put the bill together late and are moving it to the general register. Any further questions, Leader Damon?
Not on this one. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No?
No.
The motion passes. The next is House File 4959, Representative Pinto, Task Force on Holistic and Effective Responses to Illicit Drug Use established. The reason for the waiver is that the bill needed more time for the determination of the fiscal agent, and the new language that was put in for the fiscal agent also necessitated a stop in state and local government. I move that the deadlines be waived for further action on House File 4959, and that House File 4959 be re-referred to the Committee on State and Local Government, Finance, and Policy. Discussion to the motion. Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you tell me what type of fiscal implication this bill will have? My understanding is it was unknown. Can you give me an update on what the fiscal implication will be, please?
Leader Dameth, I don't have information on the fiscal implications of the bill. What we're here to discuss is the moving of the bill and the reason for the delay, and the delay was the fiscal agent, not the fiscal cost. Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that it was the fiscal agent, but wouldn't that allude to the fact that we actually need to know what the fiscal implication is going to be, given the fact that we've been highly suggested from MMB that we would exercise extreme caution this legislative session with a looming deadline or a looming deficit? Why wouldn't we have that information?
Leader Dameth, that will be a good discussion for the Committee on State and Local Government, Finance, and Policy, which is the Finance Committee for this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will this bill then be moving to any other committees other than State Gov?
That'll be its final stop. Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The motion
No.
prevails. The next bill is House File 4025, Representative Koegel, Minnesota Advisory Council on Infrastructure established. The reason for the waiver is that there were substantial changes to the bill language, and the bill was sent to Ways and Means in response to those changes in anticipation of a revised fiscal note. I move that the deadlines be waived for further action on House File 4025, and that House File 4025 be re-referred to Ways and Means. Any discussion to the motion? Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned the reason is because the fiscal note. Could you please tell us, tell the committee and the public what the fiscal implication of this bill is going to be?
Again, Leader Dameth, I think that'll be the appropriate discussion for Ways and Means. The reason for us having to do the waiver is because there was a change.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, again, members of the Rules Committee and the public, this is a very frustrating process to know that we are just pushing things through rather than having the information available to us. The least, again, going back to the first comments by Representative Torkelson, the least we could have done is had these bill authors here at committee with us so we could ask these very important questions if we are being asked to move and deal with a deadline waiver. It is just a frustrating process that we are asked to rubber stamp something without full information in this committee.
Thank you for your comment. Leader Dameth. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if the reason is the fiscal note, was the fiscal note delayed? Why didn't it make deadline originally?
So my understanding is that there is a revised fiscal note, and because of changes to the bill language, and so that is why it needs to go to Ways and Means. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so there is an updated fiscal note ready for that committee, or they're still working on that?
My understanding is they're still working on the revised fiscal note for Ways and Means.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The motion
No.
prevails. Next bill is House File 4744, Representative Jordan. The Hennepin County majority vote required to approve a budget, and the reason for the waiver is that state and local government got backlogged at the end of deadline, and they had intended to hear it before deadline but ran out of committee time. I move that the deadlines be waived for further action on House File 4744, and that House File 4744 be placed on the general register. Discussion to the motion. Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I am very pleased that we actually have the bill author in committee with us today. May I ask a question of Representative Jordan?
Sure.
Thank you, Representative Jordan. Thank you for being here as your bill is being asked to have a deadline waiver. With this saying that we would run out of time for adequate time for hearing, can you just explain a little bit how we ran out of time?
Representative Jordan.
Mr. Chair, Representative Damas, it sounds like it actually takes a couple of weeks to walk across the street from the Senate, who was in charge of drafting the bills, and I waited quite a while for the three-word bill to somehow make it, in the Green Jackets, to make it across the street. It was introduced. The bill doesn't have any of their committee stops. A lot of bills have to go through state gov, and this one was just one that got late. You know, time ticks on for us all, and that includes legislative time.
Leader Damas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Jordan. It's unfortunate that the Senate held up the work that we were doing here in this body. Thank you.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Jordan. I do have a question. So I know it sounds simple, 3 words, but as someone who represents Hennepin County, is this supported by the county?
So Representative Robbins, I'll allow the question, but note again that our purpose here is not to discuss the substance of the bills. We are trying to determine whether or not a waiver is appropriate. Representative Jordan.
Mr. Chair, Representative Robbins, this bill was unanimously voted on by the Hennepin County Board to be on their legislative agenda and is supported by every single board member.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Robbins. Representative Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to get a little bit of understanding of the delay. You said the bill is being drafted by the Senate. Well, the Senate doesn't draft bills. The reviser drafts bills.
Representative Jordan.
Mr. Chair, Representative Torkelson, the bill jackets were delivered to the Senate author, and then from there were made their way to me. You know, as when you receive a bill, you get both copies of the jackets in one envelope, and you have to somehow figure out how to get the other ones to the other author. And, you know, they were delivered to a senator, and it took a little bit of time to get them from the Senate's office to our office.
Well, thank you, Representative Jordan.
Representative
Mr.
Torkelson.
Chair, I'm well aware that there are yellow jackets and green jackets. It's not my first rodeo. And it seems to me if this was a bill that's important to you, you would have been peppering that senator with questions as to why the bill was not arriving in a timely fashion.
Sounds like Representative Jordan sure did pepper. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The motion prevails. The next bill is House File 4757, Representative Stephen, Cannabis Regulations Modified. The reason for the waiver is that this is a complex agency bill that needed robust stakeholder engagement, and the engagement wasn't able to be completed ahead of deadline. I move that the deadlines be waived for further action on House File 4757, and that House File 4757 be re-referred to the Committee on State and Local Government Finance and Policy. Discussion to the motion. Representative Robbins.
Is there a similar bill moving in the Senate, Mr. Chair?
Yes. Representative Robbins.
Thank you. Do you know what caused the delay with stakeholder engagement? This has been a high-profile issue for multiple years. Why would this have taken so long?
Representative Robbins, my understanding is that this was a requested bill from the new agency, and that there was quite a lot of discussion needed to make sure that we were getting it right before it was ready for a hearing. Representative Robbins.
Sorry, one more follow-up. So my understanding is the new agency doesn't actually have a director yet. So is it premature to be moving this bill until the new person is hired and can oversee their agency and weigh in on this?
Well, there is an interim director, so I think the interim director can certainly weigh in on making requests, and the legislature can act in accordance with those requests and consider them. Representative Torkelson? Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The motion prevails. The final bill before us today is House File 4251, Representative Herr, Office of Cannabis Management, prohibited from approving cannabis flower, cannabis products, and hemp-derived consumer products. The reason for the waiver is that Commerce had held off on hearing cannabis-related bills until they received jackets for the Office of Cannabis Management, and those jackets were delayed. I move that the deadlines be waived for further action on House File 4251, and that House File 4251 be re-referred to the Committee on Health, Finance, and Policy. Discussion to the motion. Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I had an opportunity to view some of the previous hearings, and there were amendments that were rejected just because the author did not want the bill to have to travel through additional committees, which I found very interesting. What in this bill would be able to wait until next session?
Leader Dameth, I don't have that answer. I think that is the appropriate discussion for the Committee on Health, Finance, and Policy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Follow-up?
Leader Dameth.
So Health, Finance, and Policy, what other committees will this be going to?
The next stop after this would be the General Register.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Leader Dameth, any further questions? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion
No.
prevails. Members, that is our business. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I continue to try to bring up a motion to discuss the state office building. As we know, construction is proceeding apace out there. And as Leader Dameth pointed out, we're pushing things through in a way that's different than previous rules committees have operated. And so I don't think there's any harm in going back to revisiting the decision of the previous Rules Committee on the state office building. But I do have a particular follow-up. In the last meeting, when we talked about this, you said that there had been a decision made to save the Gophers, which I'm appreciative of, but I don't know who made that decision and who is making these decisions. So if you could enlighten us on that, that would be very helpful.
Representative Robbins, I missed the question. A decision for who to go first?
Saving the Gophers that I
Oh.
had brought up before.
Yes.
So I'm glad to hear someone is paying attention to things like the historic preservation of items in this building. But who made that decision? My understanding is the jurisdiction for those decisions are now the Rules Committee and the Speaker's Office, but we've not actually had those discussions. So who made that decision?
So Representative Robbins, you had requested a meeting with the Department of Administration, and so we should be getting an email to you and Leader Dameth this afternoon to set up that meeting, and we'll be able to answer questions like that as you have them in terms of follow-ups on specific details of the construction.
Thank you. Will that meeting be
Representative
public?
No, it will not be public. It's not going to be a hearing. You requested the meeting, and so we're happy to set up a meeting and answer the questions you have. Representative Robbins.
To be clear, I have requested a hearing. So I can resubmit that request as I do most days after committee, but I would like to formally request a hearing.
Your request is noted. If you don't want the private meeting, we won't move forward, but that had been my understanding of your request previously. I now understand you're requesting hearing. There will not be a hearing. The building is moving forward. Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just moved 6 bills through for deadline waivers. Can you just help me understand what your criteria is that would bring the bills before this body for deadline waiver? Because we do have a bill out there to do with the state office building that we would love a deadline waiver on.
Sure, Leader Dameth. The criteria is that there is a substantive and good reason to have missed the deadline. So it can't just be that a bill author didn't do their work or that the deadline was missed. It has to be that one of the reasons that we gave today, all of which were approved by the committee. Leader Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that. And so the bill that I am referring to, I will be submitting to request a deadline waiver. It was because the revisers were backed up, and I couldn't get that bill jacketed in time. The bill number is House File 5167. Basically, what it would do is it would put a pause on the state office building project, return the cap board to their rightful position in the decisions, and then continue moving forward, making sure that we're keeping with the integrity of Cass Gilbert and the original plan for the Capitol and the complex around. That is basically what the bill does, and I will be requesting a deadline waiver on that so we can move that forward.
Thank you for the request.
Thank you.
Members, we don't have further business, and we are adjourned.